which is actually sort of a really common logic puzzle that was first developed by a man named Peter Watson in 1966. So here are 4 cards. As you can tell, they have a mix of letters and numbers on them. And so right now I'm just going to tell you that there's like a rule that if a card has a vowel on it, it should have an even number on the other side, like the side that you can't see. So basically, I want you guys to look at these cards and think about what 2 cards would you have to flip over to confirm whether or not I am telling you the truth. So vowel should have an even number. So it's just like written, so it's a little clear. So you don't have to like answer out, just like think about that for a second. I'm just gonna. All right. So basically, most people would say the A and the 4, because since it's a vowel and an even number, those both have the potential to confirm what I just told you. Except actually, if you really think about it, confirming evidence won't actually prove anything. So really, what you would have to flip over is the A and the 7, because those 2 cards actually have the potential to disprove what I'm saying. So I'll explain that a little bit. So basically, if I flipped over the A and it had an odd number, then obviously that would prove it wrong, so that would give you new information. And then the 7, similarly, if it had a vowel on the other side, that would prove me wrong because, like, 7 shouldn't have a vowel because it's an odd number. So if you got it wrong, like, you're in the majority, about 90, like, according to Forbes, 90% of people don't get this the first time, like myself included. I was totally confused by it. And this sort of phenomenon where you sort of, like, think that the right answer should be confirming information is called confirmation bias. So it doesn't really matter how smart you are, just as humans, we're all subject to confirmation bias. And when I first started learning about it, I was actually shocked how much it sort of plays a role in my own life. And but I found that, like, as I've started to educate myself about it, I'm better able to recognize when I'm doing it. So I'm better able to think about my own thinking and realize when I'm doing something stupid or irrational. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more about confirmation bias, what it is, kind of what studies show about it, and sort of what this means for your behavior. So have you ever had a conversation with somebody where they mentioned an old movie, like, bear with me, like Shark Boy and Lava Girl, for example, or something really weird and obscure, and you laugh about it, you wonder why there was a scene with giant thumb people in it, think about, like, where the actors are now, and then you forget about it. Until one day you're at the doctor's office, and on the TV in the waiting room, you happen to see Shark Boy and Lava Girl playing. Weird. The next day, you're on Snapchat, and you see a BuzzFeed article with the top 10 movie Hollywood flops of 2005. And guess what? Shark Boy and Lava Girl is number 3 on the list. That night, at the theater, you see a trailer for a new Taylor Lautner movie. Crazy. Later, you drive past a billboard with Kristen Stewart's face on it. And then your friend sends you a TMZ article with a recent picture of the actress who played Lava Girl. You're like, oh my god, the universe must be trying to tell me something, right? Wrong. So this is really how confirmation bias works. So since that conversation with your friends, you flipped through hundreds of things on TV, you've read countless articles on BuzzFeed, you've seen multiple things about celebrities, and you've been exposed to a handful of movie trailers. The thing is, you disregarded all the information, all the stuff that was unrelated to Shark Boy and Lava Girl, you just completely ignored. So out of all the chaos, the overwhelming flow of data in your life, you only noticed the small bits that called back to something that already just happened to be at the front of your brain. So a few weeks ago, when the movie was, like, buried under a heap of other information, you wouldn't have noticed any references to it. So, like, if you're thinking about buying a new pair of shoes, suddenly everyone's wearing them. If you just got out of a romantic relationship, every song is about love. Confirmation bias is essentially seeing the world through a filter. So those examples are all pretty harmless, but when confirmation bias starts to impact how you look for facts, that's when it can actually be kind of dangerous. So about half a century of research supports the fact that confirmation bias is one of the most dependable cognitive biases that messes up sort of how we think. So journalists, for example, trying to write a balanced article need to avoid cherry-picking evidence. Scientists need to avoid the tendency to, like, ignore disconfirming information. Confirmation bias is essentially centered around our belief that our opinions are the result of years of experience and rational analysis of facts. That's kind of a myth. The truth is that our opinions are really the result of years of paying attention to information that confirms what we already believe while ignoring stuff that disconfirms what we want to believe. One study in 1979 by researchers at the University of Minnesota so basically they told subjects about a fictional woman named Jane. And so then they listed a few example scenarios from Jane's life, examples where she acted both introverted and extroverted. So then the subjects were split into 2 groups, and both groups were asked different questions. So one group was asked, do you think she would be a good librarian? And, they thought about it for a while. They thought of a few examples where she had acted introverted, and then they said, yeah, she'd be a great librarian. The other group, they were asked, do you think she would be a good real estate agent? And similarly, they thought about it. They thought of a few examples where she had acted extroverted, and then they said, you know what, yeah, she would be a good real estate agent. But then the interesting thing is they asked the groups if she would be good at the other job. And the vast majority of people said no, she would not be good at the other job. But they were all given the exact same information. So they had already made up their minds. They just ignored evidence that didn't support what they had already chosen to believe. So psychologist David McCraney sort of elaborates on the significance of these findings by saying that confirmation bias actually has the ability to impact our memory. So it affects what we recall and what we choose to forget. As I'm sure you can imagine, confirmation bias also plays a huge role in politics. So when reading political articles, a group of researchers at Ohio State University found that we would actually spend 36% more time reading an article about a political issue that we agree with. But if you think about it, you shouldn't even really be reading that many articles that you already agree with because you're learning no new information. You're just confirming what you already believe. You should be spending more time reading articles about things that you don't understand yet. But that's not what people do. So there's another organization called OrgNet, which is basically a data science and sort of network analysis organization, and they trolled through massive amounts of data during the 2008 presidential election, relating people's political views to their Amazon shopping trends. And what they found is that people who already supported Obama, people who liked him, supported his policies, they were buying a bunch of books that painted Obama in a really positive light, and vice versa. People who didn't like him were buying books that didn't paint him in a positive light. But the thing is, people weren't looking for new information. They weren't looking for information, they're looking for confirmation. They're not trying to learn anything new, they're just looking to confirm what they already believe. So really, the significance of this is that over time, by never listening to opposing opinions, by only watching certain news channels or maybe getting all of your news from Twitter or whatever, only listening to what your friends tell you, you become so confident in your worldview that no one can convince you otherwise. But if you think about it, in science, the way that you get to the truth is by trying to disconfirm your hypothesis. So maybe this would be a good way to inform our opinions as
well. Okay, Emma, how did that go?
I really did not rehearse it very much at all, so I was kind of nervous about it. I think given that, it was alright.
Okay. Alrighty. Audience, if you could.
I thought the example that you used were really clever. Like the Shark Boy and Mountain Girl one it was really relatable for some reason. I don't know. But I like that you used a variety of things to relate back to the audience.
It kind of blows my mind that you said you didn't rehearse at all because
I did a little bit. I was gonna be oh, that's really it. But
yeah, it's really you knew what you were talking about and it flowed. You never stuttered or anything. It was super, super good.
I thought it was super fascinating, and I didn't want it to be over. I wanted to learn more about it, and I thought it was cool because I feel that's something that always happens to me, where you learn a new word or something, and you hear it 20 times the next day. So it's really interesting to learn about why that happens.
I thought you had a really good pace. It seemed like you covered everything you wanted to, but it was still easy to digest.
You had really good gestures. I remember at one point you were talking about the Jane experiment, and you're they flipped jobs, and I was just that really just made it in my head so clear, that one going like that.
Okay, Emma, a really interesting topic. Really interesting topic, and I thought you did a nice job of laying out what it was that you were talking about. I might have pulled the example, either shortened the example or pulled it into the body of your speech because it made the introduction really long. Does that make sense? And I'm not sure how we could have done that. But anyway, I thought you did you previewed the points that you were going to be talking about. I would say maybe just make those transitions talk just a little bit more. Conclusion kind of wrapped up really fast. In terms of the content in the body of your speech, I thought you did a nice job of explaining your examples. You explained yourself really well. I think your speed is slowing down just a hair enough so that we're able to track with you better. And I think you used some pausing a little more effectively this time to be able to for us to be able to keep up with you. Let's see, what else? Oh, the Lava Girl example, I think that was a really good one. The thing that, like, it triggered me was the movie with Will Smith and the betting one. I don't know if you ever watched that one or not,
I
but
think so. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, I was thinking about the football scene where they had all these fives, and so then when they did the bet, I kind of expected him to lose because of all the way that they kind of performed it. Yeah. So, but anyway, I liked the content. I thought that was really interesting. Really gives us you food for thought in terms of how you go about thinking about information gathering, for sure. And I know that there's a couple of apps now that are trying to get you not to do that. And so there's one, there's a news app that I was just reading about, and I don't know if it was because it triggered it with me, but what they'll do is they'll actually record what you read, so that you see how much you're reading from the right, the left, and the center, to see if you're getting actually a balanced view of news that you consider. Yeah, kind of interesting, but kind of addresses the issue that you were talking about, conformity or whatnot. But eye contact getting better. I thought that was good. Conversational and always an interesting topic. And come up with some really creative things. So thanks. All right.